Hi, I'm Iris Poteet. I'm here representing the Coastal Prairie Conservancy, where I've worked as a volunteer for since 1997. And I'm also a Texas Master Naturalist like Jane. She was a year ahead of me, I think. And I'm here to talk about the birds of the Katy Prairie.
Thank you.
And I'm Jane Wood, and Mary already introduced me. I retired from Exxon 2012, and I came out here to bird on the Katy Prairie, and now I do the teaching and the trainings for our new volunteers and our new master naturalists out on the prairie. So glad to be here today. Oh, yes.
Okay, are we
Take
moving
it away.
over here now, Frankie?
We're good. We're good.
Oh, you want me to turn the lights down? Can I turn the lights down?
Sure.
Okay. You're not right, I don't think. Can you see? Is it too dark? Are you all right?
Wow, music. I'll move, Barry.
You recognize that song? You remember who sang it? Who made it popular? You remember the group? I'll give you a guess. Guess.
It's not Simon and Garfunkel.
The Eagles. The Eagles.
No, it's the Birds. Okay, not spelled the same, but it's the Birds.
So, I'm here to talk about in every season, we see a change in the birds that appear on the prairie. So, there's a time for the eagle, and a time for the swallow, a time for the scissortail, and a time for the pintail, a time for the stilt. Oh, the stilt.
We'll turn the light on so they can see.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh,
That's okay.
We can't
It's probably
see. No, we can't
it probably
see.
shines there anyway.
Yeah.
Still.
okay, we got it.
And a time for the snipe, a time for the phoebe, and a time for the dickcissel. So all of the birds that I just showed you, and many others, find their home on the Katy Prairie Preserve in the course of a year. We have over 300 species that have been identified there on the Katy Prairie Preserve. So this is just a map that gives you some indication of where we are located. The coastal prairie, the Katy Prairie itself, the Katy Prairie once extended all the way from the 610 loop north of 290 all the way to the Brazos River and south of I-10. But now the coastal prairie has been shrinking because of development, and fewer than, well, a few hundred thousand, less than 200,000 acres remain.
Wow.
So starting in the spring, we welcome the swallows. And you probably all heard, you know, and every year on March 21st, the swallows return to San Juan Capistrano. Well, it seems like the swallows are coming earlier and earlier, but the barn swallows are some of our earliest arrivals. And of course, there are all the other swallows that pass through, but the barn swallows come and stay. And they nest and raise their young. Now, also in the spring, we get the migrating shorebirds, the little peeps, the dowitchers, all of those that use our wetlands on their migratory journey to the north. And occasionally we will see this, that's my favorite, the upland sandpiper is a springtime visitor. And it seems to show up at the prettiest time of the year. Then there's the eastern meadowlark. And the eastern meadowlark, we have some that are year-round residents, but in the spring they really start showing, you know, because their colors, and they start singing. And you start hearing this, which you haven't heard all winter. There's one with its big yellow breast puffed out. And they're amazingly small. They're a little chunky, but with short tails. They're very noticeable when they fly. And then we have northern bobwhite. They are resident on the Katy Prairie, but their habitat has been shrinking so much that they are a species that we manage for. They're one of the most important game species. So they need the clump grasses that we have on the prairie. So you're probably, you know that in your lawn you have turf grass. And turf grass is only so high, and it spreads its roots all around the soil. But clump grasses, which are all of our native grasses that grow on the prairie, are just grow in clumps like a plant. So the quail can find their little routes all around the clumps, and they can build their nest under there, and they can hide from predators. They can't make it on turf grass. They won't survive. They're exposed and can't hide out. And this is what you hear. You often hear them and don't see them. In the spring, the white-faced ibis begins to live up to its name, because in the springtime they have the white noticeable around the bill. Otherwise, they're hardly distinguishable from the glossy ibis. But in the spring, you can really notice the difference. They can be confusing because the young are not dark colored at all, they're white. And they can be confused with the white ibis. And white ibis, you rarely see them out with their feet not in the mud, right? So, but they actually have pink feet and legs. I love this photo, yeah, it's a great one. Okay, this one, you all know this one. This is the state bird of Texas, the northern mockingbird. And this group, I'm sure you're gonna know the next one too. What's the mystery bird over here?
Shrike.
The shrike. She said it.
The loggerhead shrike. They're very similar in appearance, but of course this was one of my first birds that I got out my book and said, it looks like a mockingbird, but I don't think so. What else could it be? And I actually found it in my book and identified it, right? Isn't that a great feeling? And then here's the shrike. Its beak is like a raptor, and so that it can tear up its prey. And it's a songbird that's also a raptor. So it can, it's unusual in that regard. It's called the butcher bird. It impales its prey on a thorny bush or barbed wire. Sometimes you'll see little lizards and stuff like that. Looks like some kid was messing around and stuck it on the wire, but no, that would be the loggerhead shrike. And there's one with a dragonfly. We also have barn owls when they can find a cavity or an old barn to nest in. The great horned owls do hunt the barn owls, so they are threatened by the great horned owls. But also one of the biggest threats to barn owls are cars, traffic, because they fly low across the road and get hit by vehicles. We've been the godparents to owls in 2018. These 3 nested that were fledged there, and one of them fell off the nest, off of the platform and onto the stairs, and the adult fed it for several weeks until it was able to fly. And we put up an orange cone so nobody would go up the stairs while it was there. It's just really amazing to watch that. So gorgeous. Now summer arrives, and it's the time when all the birds are looking for water. They're looking for water for, like, the black-necked stilt nest right next to the water or on a clump. So all the wading birds, like the herons, the egrets, will be looking for water. The little blue heron is an unusual one. It's much more secretive than its cousins, but we do have them, and they can be confusing too, because when they're young, they too are white, and then they get their color in their 2nd year. That's quite
a
talk about biting off more than you can chew. But I have a feeling that he'll be able to swallow that thing. And then the black-necked stilts, like I said, they'll build their nest on a clump of mud on the edge of a wetland, and if you get very near, they make quite a fuss. I'll let you know that you're not welcome. And I like this contrast of the black-necked stilt with the roseate spoonbills. So this is also one that we see in the summertime on the prairie. Of course, people, inexperienced birders will think that it's a flamingo because it's pink, but we know that bill is unmistakable. We also get what used to be called ironheads, the wood storks in the summertime. But I noticed on eBird that there was one seen out there just this last week. The dickcissels are summer residents. They are definitely a bird of the grasslands, and they need those grasslands, wide open spaces, to nest and raise their young. So we hear them singing all summer long. It's like they don't just sing in the springtime. They sing throughout the summer. And you can hear them and very often can't find them because they really blend in. They're saying dickcissel, can you tell?
And they say
I don't know
their
how
name.
somebody came up with that, but okay. And here's another one. It goes again. Of course, we get red-winged blackbirds. They arrive in the spring and nest in the summer. And here's a nest with eggs in it. What do you notice about those eggs? I don't know if I can make that.
At least one is different.
Yep. There's one white one and 4 stippled.
Okay, so there's actually 2 that are speckled. I know it's hard to see. I wish. Oh, I can't increase it some.
Oh, 2, yeah, there you
Okay,
go.
so there's 2 that are speckled, and there are 3 that seem to have little like lines. The 2 that are speckled don't belong to the red-winged blackbird. Who do they belong to?
Brown-headed cowbird.
There you go. You're right, the brown-headed cowbird, because they don't
Cowbird.
build their own nest, they just find another one. And you know the sound. This is one of the first sounds that birders learn to recognize. Conqueree, conqueree. Then there's scissor-tail flycatchers that nest. They tend to look for a tree that's, you know, opened all the way around. They are flycatchers, so they'll go to a perch, fly out, catch their prey and fly back. That's why they're like, it's, you know, they're out there where we can see them, and then they're so beautiful to look at. Who was fortunate enough to catch that photograph? I love that one. And then this is a little test. Over on the left, there are 3 birds there. Tell me what they are.
No idea.
Okay, there's one up here.
He's got a long tail.
Which one's that? You can't see, yeah, it is a little, but you know, when you're bird watching, isn't it like this? It's like, you can only see, like you can't see the whole bird, you can only see part of it. You only get a couple of clues. Okay, so the one in the upper right has a very long tail, that's the scissor-tail flycatcher. Okay, now the one in the middle here has a little bit of yellow and a little brown, and it's got that thick beak, like, you know, it's like
sparrow?
like a sparrow. It's a dickcissel. That one's a dickcissel. And then this one down here
Has a yellow breast.
no, it's white.
Oh, it's white, okay.
But you know, the light can be that. Don't ever rely on color. Don't ever rely on color. I birded with a guy who was colorblind. It was great because he just never relied on color. He looked at shape, he looked at contrast, you know, light, dark, but not color. So that one in that lower one is another scissor tail, but you can't see the tail. Okay.
No, the buff colored then, yeah, got it.
Okay. Autumn. Autumn is yellow and brown, it seems, and it's the time for the hunters. Hunting season starts in autumn. This is a photo of our Williams Prairie many years ago. We're in the process of restoring it now. Not restoring it, but reclaiming it because we've just been removing a lot of woody species and allowing the natives, grasses and forests to grow back. We've had lots of invasives there. This prairie, which is at Fulshire, it's south of Brookshire on 359. It's open 24 hours. It's just 11 acres. We have we've mowed a trail. I wouldn't say it's great for bird watching because you don't have much of a cover, you know, like you really would need to just sit on the edge and watch because you'll scare everything away when you start walking around. But it is a beautiful sight and an important one for our efforts at restoring prairie lands. So here is one of our autumn arrivals that you can see. You don't often see them like they're on the ground. Anybody know this one? Oh, it's got a name. So they used to be called a marsh hawk. It likes to fly very low, and you can notice the white rump patch. And this is what you would see. Again, you know, to me, I love the beautiful photographs. I like looking at them up close, but I also like seeing photographs that are more like real life birding, where you're not getting a lot of information. So here, you know, even if I didn't tell you, you could probably figure out that this is a marsh hawk or a northern harrier because of the altitude at which it's flying over the land, because they fly like just at sometimes like below, like under the tree level, under the top of, not over the tops of the trees, but just like right over there.
Do they ever come into residential area?
No, the northern harrier, I've never heard of one in a residential area.
I don't know that it was a harrier, but there was one that looked very similar to that between our buildings on neighborhood 3 and neighborhood 1. I was out talking and it looked just like that.
I imagine it was a Cooper's hawk.
Okay.
Or, yeah,
Okay.
probably a Cooper's. They would look like that, you know,
I
like
didn't
the
think
brown,
it was as
mottled
large as
brown.
the harrier's larger, isn't it?
The harrier, you know, male, female, you know, the hawks, the female's larger, the male's smaller, but the harrier, the male is more like gray and not so much brown.
This was brown and white, kind of brown and white.
So then you have your red-tailed hawks, which is pretty much ubiquitous. They're all over the world. They are here in pretty large numbers, arriving in the fall. Actually, there's some here year-round, but there are a lot more of them in the fall and winter. You sometimes can see the red tail, sometimes not, but you probably learn to identify them from the belly band. So if you see these, the streaking here, the brown, you'll see that across the belly, and there's not another hawk that has that particular pattern. And there's one flying, you can see the red tail there. You also can't really see it in this photograph, but they have a mark up here, like kind of on the shoulder, and then you hear them, right? If you were a mouse,
Red tails were among the hardest to identify because they're so variable.
Yes, yes. You've got a lot of.
But if you can see this dark mark on
the shoulder,
that's called a potential mark, and it's definitive.
Okay, now here, this one is really special. Very few of them, but their territory has been expanding. The first one I ever saw was way south of here at the near the South Texas Nuclear Project, and it was really amazing to see. They're really beautiful white on the front, and if you look close, if you can see it, but I never have seen the red patch really in the wild. But then if you see it fly, it's really majestic. So you have the hunters and you have the hunted. So mourning dove is one of the game species that hunters go after. The mourning dove it could almost be the U.S. bird because it's in all the states. And it's very common out on the prairie. Let's see, the Christmas bird count average 5-year that I looked at was like 1,200 was the average count of mourning doves. But then and then you can see from the map, from the range map, that the mourning dove's everywhere. But not so this little guy. This is the common ground dove, and if you look at the map, you see it only occurs in the far south. It's much more secretive. And the Christmas bird count average for the same 5 years was 6.
Oh,
So yeah, you want to find this one.
Does he have any markings?
Kind of reddish breast, doesn't it?
Well, you can't see it in this photo, but there's streaking. There's these little. See, you can kind of see this little bit over here, but no, it has that rounded tail. It's just so sweet. Long-billed curlews we get through the fall and winter. They are entirely carnivorous. They don't. They just eat like snail. No, not snail so much as crawfish and other things that live in the mud. Little crabs, things like that. And their long curved beak is specifically adapted to be able to get those critters out of the mud.
They have a little tip at the bill that can move underground.
Tease them out. Eastern phoebes are here, and I've been seeing a lot of them the last week or two, and hearing them a lot too. Now, most of our birds that come through here in the fall are rather drab, and like warblers are so difficult to identify in their fall plumage. But the phoebe is sort of the opposite, because in its northern residential territory, it's white and gray, really plain. But here in the winter, it's yellow on the breast. So really unusual. Now, winter has arrived, and what do you think of as winter on the prairie?
Geese.
Yes, those of us that have been around for a while think of geese. That was my story for the about before I ever started bird watching, and my husband pulled over to the side of the road, and he pointed to a field. It looked like it was covered with white sheets, and then the sheets exploded like that, right? With all that noise. Just nothing else like it, huh? Okay, so what might have startled them? What might have made them fly up? An eagle. I actually saw this happen once, back when Long and Baugh Road at Katy Hockley Cutoff was just fields. I actually saw a hawk scare up the geese. Now that just doesn't sound too scary, does it? But that's why. So that's why when they like in a movie and you've got eagles flying over, they play the sound of the the red-tailed hawk, because the red-tailed hawk sounds a lot scarier than the eagle, but the eagle's a lot bigger. And eagles are rather lazy. They really prefer to eat stuff that others have killed. Like they'll go for carrion rather than, but you can imagine as big as they are that flying takes a lot of effort, a lot of energy. This is a photograph that a friend of mine from church took right in the neighborhood at Cane Island, just as on the west side of the town of Katy. So there are a lot more of them than there used to be. Crested caracara, also a bird that eats carrion. You'll usually see it with vultures. And some people used to call this a Mexican eagle. It's really in the falcon family. And you can see that with its beak. In this photograph, you can see why it's called the crested caracara. The northern pintail, my favorite duck of the prairie. I meant to bring my decoy. I have a decoy pintail. And there's the drake and the hen together. Now here's the great challenge for birders, and this is what draws a lot of you experienced birders to the Katy Prairie, because you're going to test yourselves on sparrows. In the upper left is the white-crowned sparrow. Does it always look like that? No. Because the younger ones, the stripes on the head will be a brownish and black and not white. So that can be confusing. It does not have any streaking in the breast, so that helps. The one in the middle is the Vesper sparrow. It has the J mark on the face. That's the thing that I look for. Do you see that? See right here? A J. And it does have some streaking in the breast. It's a tiny bit larger than the Savannah sparrow. Oh, it also has the white eye ring. So those two things really help to distinguish it. And Vesper sparrows tend to be more solitary. You don't see like big flocks of them. Whereas Savannah sparrows, there's never just one, right? There's always like a dozen or more together. And they can be very, very variable. Savannah sparrows can be dark and light, more streaky and less streaky. And got other little brown jobs like the sedge wren that goes for the vegetation that grows in the wetlands, like the sedges, all the sedges, as opposed to grasses. And this is one that's very much sought after by bird watchers, and it's pretty reliable on the prairie in the winter time, but you'll probably want to check eBird and figure out just where to go to find it, because they're definitely a species of concern, and they're losing habitat. So go out and find them while you can. Wilson snipe is often can be very close to one and not see it at all because they camouflage so well. They have a distinctive flight pattern. So when you do scare one up, you might notice that it doesn't fly straight. It does this zigzag thing. And hunters find that to be quite a challenge. And that's where we get the word sniper. Because someone who is an excellent marksman is a sniper. And this is what I mean about it being camouflage. It's right in the middle of the photograph, but even then it's hard to see. And And lastly, we have our sandhill cranes. They're kind of the star of the show in the wintertime. I hope you will check our website and come out in January or February to one of our crane watching events in the evening. We have some of our expert longtime birders that lead that trip, and they, you know, for weeks ahead of time, they will observe where the cranes fly in the evening so that they can then take you there. Jane has some wonderful stories about the Sandhill Crane Tour.
And they're coming in. We can hear them.
We hear them. Yes.
I haven't seen them, I don't think.
Don't have the sound on here, but you could probably get it on your.
I have it on my phone. Yeah, we have seen it, and there has been up to 2,000. There has been up to 2,000 that have been making their home on the prairie in the winter time, and our unplugged adventure for that is in January and February. We'll go out at dusk, and we'll look from them coming in from the west. And they're coming in from the west because we know that anything to the east of where we are is homes and businesses, and there's no food out there. West of us, we still have farms, we still have rice going on, and they're going to use that food and the wetlands for their winter food and vegetation. So.
Okay, and we get the American white pelican in the winter in larger bodies of water, like our Warren Ranch Lake, which is like an 80-acre lake. Right now it's kind of silted over because there's development going on to the north and the west, but we hope that'll clear up soon, and we'll get pelicans this winter. So finally, we've come full circle. This photograph I find pretty amazing because here we have the summertime wood stork and the roseate spoonbill, and then the wintertime pelican. So somebody was in the right place at the right time to get all three of these together. There we go.
Birds.
Now you know it's the birds.
So there's a time for everything, and a time for the birds, and there's still time to save more of the Katy Prairie. We've got a couple of maps, if you could. Let's look at this one here, and let me orient you, because here to the north is Highway 290.
Yeah. This is our 9-county operating area, and where we have our preserve is here right at the border between the Waller and Harris County. And
right, here's the Harris-Waller County line right here.
Exactly.
So we have the Warren Ranch over here, and Nelson Farms are in Harris County, and then over here we have our Indian Grass Preserve, and its contiguous preserves on the Waller County side.
Where is 580?
529 is down here.
Okay. All of it.
290's up here.
All of it's north of 529.
Everything's north of 529, except for, well, Williams Prairie, that little 11 acres
Yeah.
down there south of Brookshire.
This western area.
But what we call the Katy Prairie Preserve is here.
Yeah.
And that is our showcase prairie. We are open up there on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays from 9 to 1. And but you can bird in the area on the roads and things still, and there's a lot of activity. But and some of us were actually up there the other day, and we talk about where this all started. This was just a picture of the prairie as it was before the development started coming in and eating it all up. So we are in the Coastal Prairie Conservancy. Our mission is to save a piece of the prairie in perpetuity by either buying land that we want because it's in a contiguous space. The most valuable land for us is the largest area of contiguous space where we can have a diversity of plants, animals, birds, species that want to live together in an ecosystem. So this is valuable to us, so we target areas to be purchased. We also get these landowners to actually give their land to us as part of their legacy. And then finally, we work easements.
So this is the area that's covered by our Texas Grasslands and Savannas initiative, and this initiative and the funds for this, which are come from a grant from I think it's NIFWIF, National Wildlife something, and Fish and Wildlife. Anyway, those funds help us to work with landowners and establish conservation easements on their property so that their property will not be developed for commercial or residential, although they can still live on it, they can farm or ranch, and they can have their home there.
But they can't make any additional improvements once that real estate transaction.
They're limited, and each easement contract, well, it's not just a contract, it actually is attached to the deed, so that it goes when the property is sold. It's still it's just like if you had an easement for, say, pipeline, right? A pipeline. It's going to stay there with the property no matter who owns the property. So the conservation easement likewise, but each one has its own restrictions and allowances. So the funds here help us to pay for all of the legal work and everything to make those conservation easements possible.
And we have people on our staff that visit these properties every year to ensure that easement is still being honored. And we also work with them to improve the land and make it even more valuable, because if they do what we ask them to do and instruct them and nourish their knowledge, then the birds come back and the quail will thrive. And that's an exciting thing to see, the diversity. We'll see some of these birds that we haven't seen in years, like the snow geese. You know, they have the pictures of snow geese there near the silos right in downtown Katy, right off of I-10. And the people that live there, they don't even know what that silo is for. Well, they
don't know what the rice dryer, they don't know what those buildings are, the rice dryers.
Right, those are the rice, that's where, because for 50 years, rice growing was at its peak. And we didn't bring it today, but there now, we are harvesting. In fact, just on Friday, we were harvesting a crop of rice from Nelson Farms.
Yes.
And which is this property right here.
And the birders were there.
And the birds were kind of interested in, what are you doing with our rice? We need to eat that all winter long. Don't take it all. But the neat thing is that our buddies.
Hopefully we'll get some snow geese there.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Did I do that?
No, that's working.
I'll be okay. So our partners with HEB now have put the rice that we're growing on the prairie in the store. So if you look for a bag of rice that says made in Texas, a lot of that is now coming off the Katy Prairie, because what we find the most valuable lands that we can operate in are ones that are working properties, that there's things going on.
Farms and ranches.
Farms and ranches where the cattle are disturbing the ground, and where the farmers are digging up the ground and returning it to what it used to look like.
They used to have a crawfish pond on Nelson's Farm also, which was very popular with egrets.
Oh yes, it's where the birds like to be. This very large green area here is the Warren Ranch. Warren Ranch is the now the largest ranch still operating since a couple of hundred years in Harris County, and we own an 89% segment of that, and the Warrens still live there, and we're running cattle. But in addition to that, we also have a salt dome there, and they are harvesting salt out of that salt mining it. And then, interestingly enough, I know you're in Texas, but you'd never believe that there was oil on this property too. So, quite an interesting story. So we like to bring people over to the Warren Ranch for events, and we eat the steers after they've been
So how can, well, but mostly it's cattle that we breed. So it's mostly cows and calves. It's a cow and calf operation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we hope you will come out to visit us. We have, on our website, you can find different places where that's open to the public, and the hours and so forth. But then keep an eye out for all kinds of events that we do, like the Sandhill Crane viewing, and hope that you will help to support our mission. Jane and I are here as volunteers for free, but we hope that you'll, especially on Giving Tuesday, which is December 3rd,
Okay.
because we're doing a donation matching on December 3rd. So, hey, make it hard for me, okay?
Yes, and right on our website, which is coastalprairieconservancy.org, there's a donate button there. So,
Okay, questions about the Conservancy or the birds? Or don't forget the Christmas bird count. We could use your help.
I think that's going to be January 1st on the
Always January 1st.
You don't have
the
to-
Cypress Creek Christmas bird count.
Yep.
Always on January 1st. And for birders who are helping us with Katy Prairie, Coastal Prairie Conservancy properties, we serve lunch at the field office, red beans and rice.
There you go, can't beat that. Okay, Mary asked me to talk a little bit about Lights Out Houston, because I have a connection to it. How many have heard of Lights Out Houston? All of you. Okay. Do you know when this movement started, or why? What was the event that started the discussion about what's happening to our migrating birds? Anybody know?
Was it Galveston?
Incident at Frost Bank in Galveston.
That's right, Galveston, 2017, 400 migratory birds died after colliding with the 23-story American National Insurance building in Galveston, Texas. It is the largest building on the island, and the birds struck it during a storm. And the event, strong winds, forced them into the building. There were 25 different species of birds that were killed, and including 90 Nashville warblers, 41 ovenbirds, and 21 American redstarts. All birds that were migrating through, and this took place in May, so they were on their way north. And since then, the American National Insurance Company is one of many companies now that have adopted the Lights Out Houston program and have changed their lighting for their buildings. They've turned off the lights, and they've also done a lot of work to rethink the glass of the building and how you can camouflage it so that the birds see it. Camouflage it, I guess is the way to say it, so that they will avoid it, because if it looks just like what they think they're seeing behind it, it's just like a cardinal at your window. You know, this is where I want to go. Help me out, get there. So this started Lights Out Houston, which grew to be Lights Out Texas. And the Houston Audubon and the Ornithology Association, they got very much involved in helping to determine where are the lights that are causing the migratory issues. And the three big cities in this flyway, which is very clearly marked here, would be Houston, Dallas. Anybody want to guess the third one?
Fort Worth?
It's actually Chicago.
Oh.
Yeah, Chicago, because it's on the flyway and it goes right up through here. And they had over a 4,000 bird collision event up there in 2023. So it's not going away. But what is beautiful about it, and if you look at the pictures that they draw of where the light in the United States is, they know where to target. So there's been a lot done on that, but back in, when would that be? Laura Bush, 2021, she put an op-ed out about the Lights Out Houston program and gave it a lot of good publicity. So we thank her for that, and it helped a lot. And also, it says here that Houston was named the second most dangerous city for migratory birds by Cornell Lab of Ornithology. So speaking of that, there were 3 sites in Houston that a study was done. One was downtown Houston, the second was Rice University campus, and the third was in Galveston. And what we did is in teams of 3, and I worked downtown, and I volunteered because I had been in downtown for 30 years with ExxonMobil, and I knew the buildings. And at night, it's not easy to know what you're doing, and there are homeless people around. So what we were doing is going out at the crack of dawn, and we would have a cooler, a small cooler, and we had a flashlight, and we had gloves, and we had our phone with the app on it that we were using, eBird or iNaturalist. And we had a designated path to go 2.5 miles around buildings in downtown Houston. And they were picked because of the different types of structures, the different types of glass, the different heights of the buildings, and the different problem with whether the lights were always left on or whether they were dark. So they were trying to figure out what was causing birds to go into certain areas and others to be avoided. So it's just painting a picture of what we know from a scientific perspective, what we can do to help these birds survive their migration. So off we went, and when we found a bird, we were looking at the base of these buildings. If we found a dead bird, we would pick it up, we would identify it on the phone, we would record it, which got its GPS location. We put it in our little cooler, and we started walking some more. And one of the mornings I remember, there were men that had seen us out there that were cleaning, and and then there were also all these security people sure wanted to know why we were out there in the middle of the morning. And he said, well, if you really are interested in dead birds, you should go over to that building right there. And sure enough, it was right on the edge of the south side of downtown Houston, and they had a fallout of dead birds that had already been picked up by the cleaning people, because that's not good for the people that work in that building. And so we said, well, could we take a look at them? And it was a very interesting discussion we had, because we were thinking, well, where are all the dead birds if they're already cleaning them up That's why we got out there as early as we did. But it's all, as you know, weather related. And during the times that I was doing this, we didn't have much in the way of a weather event that would have caused a lot of birds to fall out anyway, or to get disoriented. But it was a very interesting and tedious process. We then met back up, and I usually was the one that took them over to Mary Ann Weber over at the Botanic Garden office where she operated, and then from there those birds were shipped to Texas A&M for study. So that's what I did, and I felt like I was doing my part, and it's hard work. And the things that everyone can do, I'll just leave this message to you on that, is turn your lights out 11 p.m. 11 p.m. to dawn, wherever you can. Encourage Eagles Trace to change their lights so they're not pointing up, they're pointing down, but are still safe. Because everybody's saying, well, how can you turn the lights out if you know?
Safety. Yeah, but there's a whole other thing about lights and safety, because they, discovered that safer is like lights that are just above head level, like, not way up here. You don't need them way up here. You
Right,
just
you
like
need them lower.
here.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that they say, well, okay, well, what is the right thing to do? And what we're encouraging is whenever there's an opportunity to switch out lights in a facility or to grow the facility, I know you guys are growing like San Antone, when you're doing the pathway works, that's what you need. And also there are good materials to use for windows and non-good materials. And then also around businesses, same thing. And so that's all I know. Any questions on Lights Out Houston? Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate your inviting us over. And I just want to
Thank you for coming, and was expecting to learn quite as much about Lights Out. It was, I thought I knew more about the Lights Out.
it's a worthy effort. It's well underway, and the one thing that I learned that I was really impressed with is we have gotten another 1 billion bird count migration. We hadn't been able to, because they do the math, and they can tell where the birds are and how much they are using their radar, and we are now back up to getting 1 billion birds coming through, whereas those numbers are continuing to be decreasing. And so we're making a difference in this, and I absolutely love it. It says
Citizen science is very important.
Yep.
For the preservation of birds and
How many
other.
of you use eBird? Use eBird?
There you go. It says U.S. bird populations
That's
are
amazing, because there's so much data that's there and available now from people's observations.
Well, the radar is fascinating.
And this, I'll leave you with this statistic. It says the U.S. bird populations are declining rapidly, from 1 out of every 4 birds lost since 1970. An estimated 1 billion bird deaths occur annually from collisions with buildings and structures. And what I liked about this article that I was reading was that we're helping the South American birds that are living down there get through, and we're helping the birds that are up in Canada. We're helping them get back down, and it's all coming through us. So, all right, thank you.
There's another group ready to use the
But it's getting darker in Houston at night. Thankfully, I couldn't believe how many windows were left open and lights on, because tell them turn the damn lights off when they
Let me turn
Thank
this.
you all for coming.
It's fine. I had you on my calendar anyway. But we